All right, welcome to part 3, class 1, painting the landscape from beginning to end. We are just about to get to the canvases and start doing our little preliminary sketches or thumbnails or however you want to think about them. The homework is to do 4, 5, however many, until you get a design that you're really comfortable with. If you would like to do black and white underpainting or a painting like I'm doing, that's fine. You can do it in oils or you can do it in acrylics like I'm doing it. The acrylics are just great, very malleable, very easy to get in. You guys can see there that I have a stay wet palette. I hated acrylic paints up until a couple years. Well, gosh, I only started using the Stay Wet palette a couple months ago, I think. That Stay Wet palette is literally that piece of paper there that the paints are on top of a wet sponge that I soak for about 10 minutes. And I put those paints out at the beginning of class 2 hours and 9 minutes ago, and they are still wet. I haven't done anything. And that was the reason I hated acrylics, is because I was used to the working time with oils. I like how oils feel better. I think acrylics have a little bit of a plastic feel to them that I don't quite love, but I'm learning more and more to really appreciate the workability, the layerability, and the fun that I can have with acrylics. I've also traveled around the world and painted. I've been to 23 different countries doing paintings, and painting with oils or traveling with oils is rough. Excuse my language there. I almost said something, but it's rough. I got stopped in a lot of airports where they didn't speak English and I didn't speak whatever language I was in. And yeah, oils are really hard and they dry so slowly that they're hard to travel with. Wet paintings. My daughter also took oils with us on our trip around the world, and she sent them back. She was only 11 years old, much wiser than I am, much wiser than I'll ever be at age 11. She sent her oils back. She said, I don't want these. I would rather use gouache, which is a version of watercolor. It's kind of a in between watercolors and acrylics. And what I found is that for me to paint oils traveling took time. It made setup, it had all the drawing, it had all the trying to take care of my paintings, made shipping the paintings back really hard. Whereas my daughter just filled in sketchbook after sketchbook after sketchbook. I mean, 10 sketchbooks she filled up while I did my whatever 20 or 30 paintings. It was amazing. And we'll cherish those sketchbooks forever. She could just be in a gallery and all of a sudden just pull out her pencil and her pad, or we could be at a coffee shop waiting for our, croissant, and she would just, pull out one or two colors and just start sketching. In fact, she realized that if she did nice enough sketches of the owners of the restaurants and stuff, they'd give her free dessert. And it was super fun, super cute. And I just really went, okay, it's about capturing the moment. It's about being there. It's about being present. And the oils made it very difficult for me. Definitely for trips where I'm going with a focus on painting, like when I travel to Italy and stuff with groups. Yeah, oils, of course, I'll take oils. But for most of my trips, where I just want to do quick sketches and be able to paint, gouache or acrylics are fantastic, or even just pens and pencils or whatever else. Like, whatever, just make art. No excuses. Okay, I'm going to do share screen, drop over to our group here. And I'm just going to talk very quickly about the importance of design. I apologize that we're not starting to paint just yet. I'm going to go to my paintings here, and I'm going to very quickly use this picture of my daughter and the dragon. Everybody sees that okay? So a lot of what I'm talking about, I learned from illustration. Again, I started off kind of in the very beginning of the computer age. Now I'm better, not good at computers, but I'm better. But in the early years, working on design was really, really important. And when I was doing illustration work, I was doing a lot of children's book stuff, which might mean combining elements and a lot of things that you just can't do straightforward. They need to I'm trying to grab a couple other pictures real quick. Like this guy here. Let's just go ahead and look. So here, I mean, these are old. They're not great paintings or anything, but these were illustrations I did back in the day. And it was very difficult to get two bears to dance with my niece as she played the flute, right? So it was very imperative that I just started gathering information. These birch trees are from a photo that I took in near Bend, Oregon. The stump was from a photo near my grandmother's cabin. This big bear is from a photo of a bear scratching his back against a tree trunk. Right? I don't know what this little bear is doing, but you know, and then I would go and take photos of my niece and have to combine all those. And it was really informative of how you need to combine a whole lot of images. Just because I did, yeah, there's a whole series of these kids and bears and just how do you combine imagery and how do you this is a photo of my mom's cousin. It's not my favorite painting of this, but my mom's cousin, and he was actually pulling his brother in this weird trike wagon, and he was so unhappy because his brother was obviously slowing him down and too heavy. But in my initial sketch, I made it a giant pig with a red ribbon, like a blue ribbon on it. And then I ended up changing it into a horse and then into a Pegasus, and just kind of, you know, again, back in the illustration days.
Those are fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, you know, and I'm always wonder, like, what would have happened if I would have kept doing these instead? But I love landscapes. This took so much work, so much combining, and so many of these preliminary sketches and color studies. And the money, I make far more money now doing what I do, and I'm probably a lot happier. But there are times when I kind of wish that I could go back. Like this was just a photo of my nephew, the little girl who was playing the flute, her brother, and I don't even know what he's pointing at in the photo, but I just loved it. And so I called this one Ursa Major, as if they're looking up at the constellation. And a lot of fun, but you can imagine how many sketches this takes, how much going back, and imagine before computers too, or before at least I knew how to use computers, because I was like literally like sending pictures to a Xerox machine downtown, and like I don't know how big to make it, so I'll make one 3 inches, one 5 inches, one 8 inches, and then combine them, and then do tracing paper and all the other things. And yeah, just these fun things. So one thing that I learned in this process, this is clean up after your pet. That's supposed to be a little shovel that this kid is owning or holding. But a big thing that I learned is that if you're going to spend any amount of time in the painting, it is so important that we keep the viewer within the space. So I want you guys to be partly thinking about within your design, how do we keep the viewer within space? You'll see this picture and the other dragon picture, I was very much into the circles. Right? And I was very into like, here's the focus, everything kind of leans towards the focal area. So thinking about that within design, even though it's illustration, I want your attention here. This is the story. All of the rest of it is supportive, right? So what can I do with line? What can I do with value? It's almost spotlit, isn't it? Not a great painting or anything, I know, but lots of fun. So let's see if we can find
It's
the
wonderful.
Oh, you're so sweet. So within this dragon picture, this was after I'd already retired, quote unquote, from illustration work. And I had done this painting previously. The dragon was really not very big. He was only a little bigger than she was. And I had used my neighbor girl, and my daughter just loved the painting. So we made a little print for her and put it on her wall of the, a little girl. I painted it before my daughter was born. And I just, as I was reading at night, I would think about this painting and like, this could be so much better. This could be so much bigger, so much more interesting. So I redid it, had my daughter model for me. I modeled as the dragon. My wife took the photos. We set up the lights. We did all these things and so many sketches. Just even like, how do I lay out the teddy bear so that he's in there, but not completely in there? So Aunt Raggedy Andy is kind of pointing up towards this. This is keeping us within this circle. And it was so interesting, look at this circle shape going from here, right at the focal point. This whole headboard is made up. That's not a real headboard. We don't own that. It's just circle, 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 with supporting information. Like my very favorite part is this little sketch up here of the dragon, just telling you that he's part of the family, that he's, this isn't just the first time she bumped into him. And she's reading a story of a brave knight that kills a dragon or a monster, and that's why he's scared. So it's a scary story. What would be an inspiring story to most of us is a scary story to him. But anyways, how do we keep the viewer within the space? So I want you to think about that while you're designing it. In fact, I think that could almost be rule number one, is how do we keep the viewer in? How do we lead the viewer to the focal point? And then what is this painting about? Is it about the sky? Is it about the water? Is it about the grass? Is it about the trees? What is the main component that you are going to choose out of here? So sorry. Let's get back. How do I get back to our group? There we go. Okay. So let's get up. Let's paint with all of those things in mind. And let's see if we can't make some interesting preliminary sketches or thumbnails. Does anybody have questions about the Stay Wet palette or anything like that? Again, this is pretty wet just to the touch. These black paints, even though they've been out for well over 2.5 hours, are still very wet. This really changed the game for me. Just the fact that I could keep acrylics wet and keep working them for hours and hours, days and days. And in fact, at the end of it, at the end of today, I will put this Tupperware lid on top of the box, and the paints will be completely wet tomorrow and even the next day. So it's really made it a lot easier for me.
Can I ask, when you're working on color paintings, do you have a different Stay Wet palette for every painting you're working on? If it has
Great
a color
question. Yeah, I do have 2 or 3 different ones. Usually when I'm working in black and white, I actually have a small one that I use because I don't need that huge mixing area. But this one was already kind of in progress. And the paper that you buy is kind of expensive. I found this is the 3rd or 4th time I've used that paper. Just by wiping it down and cleaning it off, I can continue to use the paper. But yeah, I do have smaller ones that sometimes I'll just tuck paint away. You can see the dried up sponge and paper in here. So yeah, there are times when I will keep multiple palettes going if I have multiple paintings or projects. When I was just getting ready for this show, I was definitely behind the gun. So I was working on 3 or 4 paintings at a time. So I did have different palettes, but mostly those were oils. I do actually use another Stay Wet palette for
Okay,
my oils,
got it.
just because the Tupperware cuts off the oxygen. So I just, when I clean up my paints, I put them in here. I can put this in the freezer if I want. One thing I do have in here is a little piece of cotton with a couple drops of clove oil, and putting that in the box and putting on the lid for some reason really cuts off the oxygen, and the paints do stay wet for a long time. So if I know I'm not going to get back to the painting maybe the next day, like it's a weekend and we're going to go for a hike or whatever, I will just make sure I shut this up completely. So I use a multiple of these, but you could just use any Tupperware. But this is my old Stay Wet palette from college, and I never actually learned how to use it, so it just became my oil painting palette. At the end of the day, I'll just scrape up my paints, put them on there so that I can clean this great big huge surface here.
Thank you.
Just a big piece of glass. So yes, sometimes I do, but generally with my acrylics at this point in my I don't know what you want to say, evolution, I only use very, very limited colors. I'm using primarily black and white. Sometimes I'll add a little bit of kind of an earth color to the black just to warm it up a little bit. I find that the black can look very cold. It's really truly just a dark blue. So if and I like my paintings generally on the warmer side. Most of my paintings lean towards the warmer colors, and I think that's just because I live in Oregon, and we all want a little warmth in our house in the long winter months. But yeah, I've also done some acrylics with using blue mixed with the black or red mixed with the black. I'm still learning. I'm just playing. This is all pretty new to me, but I really have started to open up to the possibilities of acrylics. So you'll see that I have can you guys see if the class is recording?
It is.
Okay, great. So you'll see that I set up 7 palettes and then 2 more here. 7, canvases. I put 4 horizontally and 3 vertically. I urge you guys to, even though, like, if you take a photo, let's say it's up the coast or whatever, a sunset, and you're just like, well, this is obviously, I'm trying to make the camera a little more sturdy. You can see it's going to pop off. There we go. You're all like, oh, obviously these are horizontal paintings. But I urge you, when you're doing your thumbnails, just draw 1 or 2 vertical. As more, I guess they call this landscape, and this would be portrait, just to see what happens with that edit. I also, because I've got so many canvases here in the house, I've got square format and I've got long and are really tall. I've got all these different options, so I can really experiment with different different design options, but at least test it horizontally and vertically to see. So I'm going to just go ahead for the first 2. I'm just going to literally copy this picture. I'm just going to pretend that I'm a genius and I just took a great photo and that I want to see what that looks like. So I've got one that's a higher horizon line and one that's a lower horizon line. I may even lower and raise just to push that a little bit. I'm going to start with my darks, and I'm going to go big. And these, I just grabbed some shop brushes. I actually bought a couple new, actually I bought a whole bunch. I bought like 75 new of these piece of crap chip brushes. They're 50 cents each on Amazon. I realized I was finally running low because I buy them in bulk. And I love painting with these, especially when I'm just kind of sketching along. I could easily pick up my little tiny brush and really be, you know, afraid to mess things up. But watch what you can do with acrylics. So I'm just going to start with this one. I'm going to go a lower horizon line. Right? Bang. Got some trees over here. Got a creek. Got some trees over here. These trees are getting a little bigger. And it's really quite dark. I'm going to do it as a no tan, meaning just dark and light to start with. Isn't that weird? Like that quickly, and I have some ideas for this painting. I'm going to let this set up for just a second, and I'm going to do another one down below, and then I'm going to come back to this one. So this one, we're going to do a higher horizon line. So this one's a little lower. It's below the 50 point. I'm going to raise this one all the way up to the top third. So 1, 2, 3. I like to think in thirds a lot of times in my paintings. So with a no tan, meaning light and dark, I get to decide when it comes to the mid values, the areas that are kind of gray or in between, I get to decide, is that a light or is that a dark? I'm going to actually make the land in this one a light. And I'm just going to look at the shadow patterning going along the side of the creek, that dark, to give me my form. So already you can see two very different scenes, just only using light and dark. But because they're acrylics, I can come in and I can model and I can change and I can manipulate. Let's get some darks. Let's get some texture into those grasses. I'm going to start inviting a third value. So I've got lights, darks, and mids. Now I can just basically take my black and white paint and I'm just going to mix up a mid value. The paints are pretty wet, so I can only hold them up for a little bit before the black starts sliding down. I'm just going to mix up a mid dark value for the top one. And I'm just going to experiment to see what happens if I bring in little hints of light, so that the ground plane isn't just only darkness. Get a little hint of texture in there. Can you guys see that okay, or do I need to zoom in a little bit? So you see how just inviting that little bit of light into there? Let's do the same, but inverse. I'm going to lighten that value even more to create my ground plane. A little darker than that. I added too much white. All right, so now we have three values on each one of them. We have a light, a dark, and a mid, at least of some sort, whether it's the right mid, you know, completely adjustable. But here now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get white. or a very, very light value, but I'm going to go ahead and use almost white. I'll mix a little bit of black in there just so it's really light, and I'm going to bring in my sky. I can also use this white because it's amazing. These acrylics are already starting to set up. So I can use this white as a carving tool. I can begin to use it to come in and cut, you know, organize these trees, give them a little bit of different form. Let me go ahead and bring some white into that just to get a little bit of highlight. All right, let's do the same down here. On this one, you guys have heard me mention that I'm not a huge fan of this lump of trees over here. So let's see if we can't do something with that. Make it something that's a little more interesting. Might have to grab a smaller brush. But by simply just using black and white, I've got so much opportunity. And I generally find if one of my pictures looks good in black and white, if my little value structure or my preliminary sketch looks good in black and white, it will generally look really good in color, or quite good, you know, as long as they don't mess it up too much. This one, I've got a little more room for variation. So let's bring in some more texture into that ground. Let's bring some lights, like so right now what I'm doing is I'm going with the obvious design. I'm going with my first intuition, which I generally will do just because sometimes you just walk up to a place or you see a photo or you're whatever and you're just like, yep, that's it. That's the edit. That's, you know, I already know what this one's kind of handing itself to me. I'll take it, take the easy win, take the low-lying fruit, whatever you want to say. But other times, yeah, it's definitely worth experimenting and pushing and seeing. When I told you that I wasn't happy with that tree, let's go ahead and see if we can't do something back there. Probably don't want to go all the way to white with it, but let's get in there and let's carve these trees up just a little bit and see if we can't make them interesting. Let's add a little separation. Got my little brush. Maybe a little break so that it's not connected, not just a giant lump. Maybe that's enough. Maybe hinting at a little more separation, a little more light holes in there. Can you guys see that okay?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, let's push the lights just above the horizon too. Let's make it a little brighter. Careful with sky holes. Sky holes meaning those little dots in there, because just like anything, you're just like, oh my gosh, that's beautiful. Oh, that makes it so interesting. So, you know, a little bit of something can become very dangerous when you think it's going well. I also usually don't want my sky holes as bright as the sky behind it if they're smaller, because there's just not as much light getting through. Let's bring some of this reflected, beautiful light that is here down into here. You got to be careful because I got both references, so I just keep looking at the wrong one. All right, I'm going to go ahead and lighten this ground plane up just a touch more, but then I'm going to be done with it. Just because I know that when I bring in color, it will inevitably get a little bit darker. So I'm just going to lighten the tops of these ground planes just a touch. Just so that we can see the structure of the land, but I still want it to be quite dark. I don't want the ground to be nearly as light as the sky in this one. This one's still quite a bit darker too than the sky. But can you guys see how quick these little experiments are?
Yes.
And can you see how much fun that might be to play and experiment and to push these with color later? So, you know, I've got these fun little guys and got a big, but I'm already excited for next week. I can't wait. Let's color these. Come on. So let's go ahead and move over and do a couple more. Okay, so these were the two gimmies, right? These were simple. These were easy. I just basically sort of kind of copied the photo. Now let's grab, I put some blue tape onto the backs of these so that we can, I'm still doing two more horizontals before I get to my verticals. So let's go ahead and just see what happens if we really, let's just make one really about the sky. So again, I got to think this format when I'm editing this scene, which almost already did it. Maybe I'll just do that. All right. I like that, actually. You guys like that?
Mhm.
I wish I had black paper to frame it. That'd make it a little easier to see. Let's quickly squeeze out some of this brush. But again, you can see why this shot brush is so fun. It just kind of knocks in, and then every once in a while I can pull out a tiny bit better brush, still in bad shape. But again, I like to start with my darks. But this time it's really low. This horizon line was quite low, but now we're really going to lower it down. This one's really going to be about the sky. My creek the turn is almost like instantaneous. It's like right when we get into the canvas. And then it quickly bounces across. Corner kind of comes in here. Up to there. Start with my no tin again, just black and white, dark and light. It's not white, of course, it's got that gray underpainting, but dark and light anyways. Okay, so this time I've got that big blob of trees right here. I don't like it. I know I don't like it. I know that this is a lot about the sky, but what if it was about those trees and the sky? What if I pretended that this, oops, messed that up, get back to it. What if I pretended that the tree was closer to me, or that I had simply walked up 20 steps or 100 steps, or, you know, a little bit, and all of a sudden the tree was bigger? What if it came into the space? This would be a great time for me to have another reference of a interesting tree, which I don't, but you know, if I were taking a little more time, if I wasn't teaching right now and not wanting dead space, I would go online or go through my photos or whatever, and I might look up a interesting tree shape. And is one tree going to be good? Or do I need to fill in this space? Don't know. I'm going to bring it down. These trees are on the far side of the bank. I'm bringing this tree so he's on this side of the bank. I can decide, does he go all the way up and off the space? Let's try it. It's acrylic. It's easy to move. All right. Hi, kitty. I know. I have to take a 2-minute break while I let the cat out. No, this cat talks so much. So already that's interesting, right? There's something there. It's not designed completely. I don't for sure have it, but there's something there that I can kind of begin to get behind. I can kind of begin to experiment. How else? Let's just get rid of those stupid trees. Don't really love this. I just put that little piece of paper on there. I'm just trying to see if that could be an edit. I don't quite see it. Like the movement seems off. It just kind of wants to shoot me off here. I'm going to take this piece of paper back off here, and I'm going to use it as well. Let's get rid of some of those trees. Super simple. Almost just a horizon line and a creek. Let's try it. Get my horizon line even higher than I did over here. It's going to be almost to the top. Where is your horizon line? Super important. I'm going to wait to put those trees back there. Gonna just kind of experiment. The creek's still quite high on towards the horizon line. This time I'm going to bring the angle down a little steeper. Totally different design, right? Still using the same references. Still thinking about, what could be. Let's take these trees. Do I want trees? Let's see. So I got this turning here. How can I give it balance? How can I give it movement? Let's break them up. Maybe make them a little scrubbier, not as solid and full. Let's,
Background hills.
ooh, look at you. See, it takes a village. Love it. Love that. And I'll be able to do that with my next value. Right? Is this interesting enough? I don't know, because this is what it's about. So these trees are really just supporting cast. And all I need is one of these, all of these to work out. I don't need all of them. So I'm just experimenting. I'm just playing. Just what if, what if, what if, what if? Write that in all caps. Put it up on your wall. What if? That is kind of one of the most important things when you're designing is what if I let this cat out? Can you guys hear the cat?
You have one crying and I've got one sitting on my computer.
Oh, my cat never is cuddly except for at night, and then he just gets pissed off every time I move. All right, I'm gonna take a 1-minute break and carry this cat outside, and I will be right back, and that way this will be dry and we'll put in some lights in those. I absolutely love doing this. This is so fun for me. Just again, that what if, what if, what if. Just using that gray value that's on there as part of it, just to let that kind of help tell the story. Acrylics do dry darker. I'm still getting used to that. I keep thinking that I'm putting it on too light, and then as it dries, it gets darker and darker. Cat wanted to go in the attic, which I just got to remember that he's in the attic. And but I could hear him up there meowing now above me. Oh boy, he's really above me. Let's bring some light in. And you said a hill, and hill in this one, Michelle?
That one.
So like, let's just see, what if it's a really big hill, like there's hardly any sky?
The one above, I think if you put a rising sun behind that tree.
Yeah, let's see. So yeah, see how by just leaving the grays there, I kind of leave the hint of a hill?
Mm-hmm.
Would those show in the reflection or not really because it's too far
No,
away?
they're too far away.
So the horizon line is where the base of the hillside meets that kind of distant land.
Yeah, thank you.
I get confused on that, on exactly where is the horizon if there's sort of multiple, things in the background.
Yeah, just think of where does the ground meet the earth. It's not the easiest thing to always keep in the right place, which is kind of funny since, it's kind of where we live, kind of where we hang out. But yeah, it is interesting to think about. I got a little bit, I just kind of came in and cut into these trees and now they're like same shape, same shape, same shape, same shape. So I got to think about that a little bit. Let's just go ahead and cut down this tree. Sorry, I loved you. Bye. Lighten them up so they fall back into space a little bit. Do that to these guys too. Let's knock these back just a touch. Just by lightening them up, watch what happens to these trees here. I'll move it over so we can see it a little better. But I want these trees to appear closer than these trees. So I just mixed up a dark gray, but it's not black. I'm just gonna lighten these guys up a little bit, and hopefully all of a sudden they just kind of fall back into space. And get that a little darker, so maybe those couple trees that are a little bigger come a little bit closer, ideally. All right, but now I realize that my horizon line, I either need to bring the base of these trees down a little bit, because by how they line up across the horizon line, these trees are actually closer, even though they're lighter and smaller. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the base of these dark ones. Let's just lower those a little bit and see if it doesn't appear that they're a little closer. And then conversely, let's make some light and let's come across and raise these little guys up. Oops. Let's raise these little guys up a little bit. There we go. So hopefully it makes it look like these trees, and let's just even see what happens if I make this even a little lower. Pretty crazy what you can do with a silly little 50-cent shop brush, right? All this kind of implied texture and design that kind of shows up. All right, so I heard somebody say something about a sun in here.
Mhm.
What
Yeah.
were you saying? Sorry, I missed it.
Where your focal point is, which is where the stream is going back into those trees. If you had a sun right in there. Yep.
Okie doke, let's try it.
Sun or a moon.
Sun or a moon. Okay, so I got my highlight. Now I'm gonna go ahead and add some dark so that it just fades out from there, hopefully. I think you can get still quite a bit lighter though.
I think I'd like that tall tree if it didn't go quite to the top.
You think so? All right, let's chop it
I don't
down.
know.
Well, let's try it. That's the great thing with acrylics. Does that feel better to you?
Yeah, that feels better, but
There you go.
that's
Well, no,
just me.
no, but that's what we're doing. Like if you just said, you know what, never mind, put it back up. I'm like, all right.
I agree. That does better.
Okay, so we'll get rid of that tree.
Because if that was a little bit thinner on the left-hand edge, the light could come through there,
Mhm.
through the leaves.
Yeah, let's get some light in there. Good call. Love it. Let's prune this tree. We're not cutting it down. We're just pruning it now.
You'd think you'd get a little sparkle or two on that creek going in the back.
Yeah, let's do it.
Right? Yes.
So fun.
Nice.
I am having so much fun. And you
I
guys
think
have
that's my favorite.
there you go. So far, yeah.
Mine too.
Just taking the elements, right? It's still the same 4 elements: sky, land, water, trees. And all we're doing is just kind of what if.
Okay, and that's gonna be the one that has the sunrise, right?
Mhm.
It's up to us. It could be sunset, sunrise.
Well, I'm just looking in terms of where that sun's coming up, you would have a little color in that sky and a little touch of color on the creek.
Correct. Yeah, I believe that's true.
I'm just looking ahead, that's all.
Yep.
And next week he'll do the color, right?
Oh, I thought you were going to say next
Okay.
week you'll mess it all up. But yes, next week we'll do color. What if, what if, what if? Right? And it's so malleable. Do we like hill? Should we move hill? Was that too perfect of hill? It kind of follows the shape of these trees, doesn't it? See how the trees kind of have that angle? And the hill has that angle? I think we can just move trees. Let's make them so that they're not coming down so much. Maybe this one actually comes
They
up.
almost seem too big to me, but
It just depends on how far back they are, yeah. All of a sudden it just makes the creek smaller. And I can lower it, lower their horizon line again, or their place on the horizon line to make them come forward. We can do, it's just testing. We can change our mind. You guys can be like, nope, stupid big trees, don't love them.
I can see the emphasis being on all the different grasses right there.
Right, yeah, for sure. Like that makes me
You
want
looked
to.
at, you looked at that one that had, I think it was daisies down in the left-hand corner. You could bring them in a little bit.
Let's try it. Some
Bring
Queen
in lace.
Oops. I'm gonna raise this horizon line up. Fun, fun, fun. All right, well, class is over. So if you guys have ordained things that you need to be at, I will not be, I completely understand if you need to go. I will just keep recording for a little bit. Did you guys want to see me do a wipe away one really quickly, and then I'll get back to these acrylics?
Yeah,
So let's go ahead. I'm just going to take this palette and swap it out for my oil paints. Maybe let's try something. I've never done this before. Let's try something and see if I can. So wiping away, for those of you who are new to my class and haven't seen my videos or anything where I do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover these two with some oil paints, and I've kind of found that I don't care too much what they are. I'm gonna grab different brushes. I'm gonna make sure I keep my acrylic brushes separate from my oil brushes. They do not love each other. I'm gonna grab, again, a couple just crappy shop brushes, a couple Q-tips, and then some paper towels. Oops. And I'm just gonna take this Indian yellow and just scrub it on there. I could use kind of any color. Maybe I should put out some burnt umber or something. That might be a good idea. Let's do Indian yellow on this one. And let's do quinacridone red mixed with Indian yellow on this one. Just grab a paper towel. I'm just going to set that aside because I don't have my plain air or my oil paints set up right now. So I'm just going to have to make sure I remember to clean that after class. Just going to take and wipe the Indian yellow around on there. Just so it's not super slippery and super soppy. Just same thing with the quinacridone red mixed with a little, I think that's quinacridone. I have no idea what color this red is. A little more of that. This red seems, this is an old set from my plein air paintings the last couple of days. Me just cleaning off my plein air kit and just putting it in here. And it looks like the red, it's kind of dried a little more than some of the other colors. Might be a little older. All right, hideous. I'm just going to go ahead and squeeze out a little bit of burnt umber. I could use black. I could use, it really doesn't matter. I could use ultramarine blue. Maybe I'll, yeah, I don't know. Let's just try the burnt umber. Normally I would let this sit and soak in for about 5 minutes. The transparent colors like Indian yellow, and I don't know what red this is, so I don't even know if it's a transparent. Now, that may be a cadmium red, which doesn't soak into the canvas as much, but that's okay. We're gonna figure it out. Now I'm just going to swish some dark brown on there. Super fun, super messy. Yeah, all these paints are a little stickier than I thought they would be. I could add a touch of paint thinner just to help them slide around, but we'll make them work. Just a touch though, when you add paint thinner, you guys be aware that a little bit will do you. You only usually have to tip the corner of your brush in. All right, same thing over here. Don't know what's going to happen. Boy, is that sticky. Maybe it's, oh, you know what it is? It's that the surface that I'm painting on is really thirsty. That's just, you know, a canvas, those cheap canvases. And I normally paint on wood panels that I gesso myself like 3 to 4 times. And I'm not used to the paint being so like, it's getting sucked in and the canvas is very thirsty. So it's just something to be aware of. That'll be a little bit weird with this process, but let's just see if we can do it.
I'm sorry, which color is that?
I don't know. Oh, the brown?
Yeah.
I believe burnt umber. Yep, burnt umber. So sticky. Normally my paint just slips and slides around and does what I want it to do, but thirsty canvas. All right, beautiful. Class is done. Just kidding. All right, let's figure out a design for this one. I am gonna have to use some paint thinner, I can tell. So I'm gonna be dipping my paper towel a little bit, or my brush, or whatever I decide to use, into the paint thinner a little bit, just to get it to activate. Otherwise, I'm gonna have a hard time removing it. Gotta figure out what design I want to do. Maybe I'll do one of that tree with the sunset kind of behind it, since you guys like that. Is there another one up there that you kind of like? Maybe we should do one higher horizon, maybe the bottom left one up there.
I like the bottom right better.
You like these two?
Yeah.
Okay, doke. Let's do it. We're gonna do this one as our sunset. Oh, wish me luck though. This is some weird
Good luck.
surface we got going on here. Just dip this brush barely in some paint thinner, and I'm almost tempted to scribble it around a little bit just to get that paint activated. Maybe let's see if that works. Pushing it into that paint, hopefully to kind of activate it, just to get it so it's a little slipperier. Let's do the same over here. I dipped it, knocked the paint off. All right, I'll probably do this one, but without the mountain in it, just to keep it a little simpler. I've got a hair in there I'm trying to pull off with the brush. There we go. That is the problem with these new cheap shop brushes, is they do love to throw hairs. All right. I'm going to be reaching across a little bit. Maybe I can move the paint thinner closer to me. But first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use this paper towel to kind of wipe off the negative shapes. For those of you who've been in my classes, you know that I'm dealt with dyslexia and touches of ADHD all my life. I don't think of it as any kind of a negative. I was lucky to have parents that were very supportive and figured stuff out while I was still pretty young. But I do think sometimes that this way of working is almost like a reverse way of working. And I often wonder if it works better for certain types of brains. But what's neat about it is it keeps my brain very abstract and just thinking shapes and values. And that is really all we worry about in this stage of kind of figuring out our paintings, is shapes and values, and getting clean paper towels so our hands don't get completely covered. Shapes and values, very abstract. I'm always interested when people say, I love landscape painting, but I don't like abstract paintings. And I always think, gosh, good landscape paintings are so abstract. Lean in towards the movement and the flow of the piece a little bit. All right, I'm going to dip my brush. Well, let's get this tree a little more interesting of a shape if I can. I'm going to dip it in the paint thinner. You know what I might do it with a brush a little bit. So I just dipped my littler brush, my 1/2 inch shop brush in there. And I'm just gonna put a little paint thinner on this brush. I'm just rubbing that in, hoping that it reactivates this paint. We'll see. Now I'm going to take and wipe with this. There we go. Yeah, you can see how thirsty that canvas was. It really just sucked up this paint. That red paint. If this was on my panel, on wood panel that I had prepared, I'd be able to get back almost to white. But we're not worried because we're going to come back in and paint over it, so it doesn't really matter.
You
Isn't that funny how it just kind of hopefully just starts to reveal itself? Again, it's just a weirder, different way of thinking. I'm going to try one more time with paint thinner, but I may have to come in with light paint, which again is fine.
The area in the back there, is that field?
Yeah, right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can lower that if I need to. That's my fat finger.
It is such a magical process when you do it.
exactly.
All right, well, we can see that I'm not able to because of the juicy or the thirstiness of the canvas, but let's just go ahead and paint wet into wet a little bit just to kind of get our values back. So I'm just going to go ahead and make up a little bit of a light yellow. Let's go ahead and add a little red just so that it relates to the painting and all the red that's in there. And let's just if nothing else, I can still let this kind of dry and tack up, and I can come in and I can color it all I want next week. Yeah, I might be getting a little crazy here, trying to add some color too quickly, but
Don't forget that little bit of creek back there.
yeah, that's right. Get that green back off there, though. I do not like it, so I'll just wipe that back off. Sorry, green. There we go. Let's bring back in some of those Got a little wishy-washy here, but still kind of fun. And again, I can kind of come back in. It's just kind of an underpainting. Let's get some of that creek color. Let's clean this brush a little bit, or go ahead and grab a different brush.
That's it.
And let's make these trees not so wishy-washy. Let's give them a little bit of shape just by using the sky to kind of carve in and maybe give them a little bit of form. So they're not just amorphous blobs. And let's warm up that sun.
Pretty.
Pretty fun, at least.
It's magical.
So yeah, I mean, I can come in, I can do more, I can, add color into these trees, I can add information into these grasses. There's so much I can do, and maybe we'll do that next week. I'm sure we will. Let's do the other guy real quick. Clean paper towel. Let this one really soak in. I'm probably in danger here. Okay, so we thought we liked this one better for this guy. Roughly that kind of idea. Let's just take and move the horizon line off, and let's see. All right. Let's bring in a creek. Where are you, creek? Right here, you think? Maybe right here, you think? Sky and creek. I need new paper towels. I ran out of my, I used them all. Lovely. Fun, fun, fun. All right, let's get that creek in. That's going to be a little brighter than up above, actually. And while it's wet, or here, I'll show you the Q-tips. Let's get a little bit. So I'm going to try and get a little bit of detail information into the creek here. Changed my design by putting that up too high. I guess this whole area needs to get wiped off. Let's see what happens if I pretend there's grasses there. Back to the paper towel for some bigger shapes. Take me forever if I just try to remove everything with those silly little Q-tips. Without the paint thinner, this paint barely wants to come off. It is a really thirsty canvas and a very mucky, sticky paint. A little muddy, but kind of fun, and we can see what we can do with that as well. Let's raise this up.
Much better.
It's interesting that I'm not used to working on canvas anymore. And it is amazing to see how truly thirsty it is. I have a lot of students who is like, I tried your thing, the wiping away, and it really doesn't work. Nothing's wiping away. And now I have more sympathy. Works definitely better on panels, but little elbow grease, bit of paint thinner, a lot of Q-tips, a couple trees I've had to cut down worth of paper towels. We're still getting something to show up there. I don't know. This one, I'm not sure. Let's play with it next week and see what we can get out of this craziness. Anyways, I don't want to keep you guys too much longer, but I will probably attempt to do the 3 vertical acrylics here in a little bit, and after I grab a little bit of lunch, and have those ready so that we'll have 7 black and white, or value studies. let's talk a little bit about class today before I let you go. So somebody tell me kind of what the homework is, please.
You said, I think 3 to 4 value studies.
Yeah. Kind of like what we're doing here, just designing your painting. Yeah, designing what you think maybe you want to do. Using ideally this reference, kind of, you know, taking the elements, the tree, the creek, the water. I mean, you can see how much I've changed it. It almost has nothing to do with it anymore. Take those elements, have fun, experiment, push them around, do some value studies, and then next week we're going to do color studies. Does that make sense to everybody?
Will you be painting over these exact sketches when you do the color?
Probably at least a couple of them.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry I didn't get all 9 of those done, but I think you can definitely get a good feel for it. And here I'll turn off the light and let's just see. You can see, so then it pushes the values, the lights and the darks. So a lot of times I'll look at my work in mid value or in a lower light just to kind of test things. So yeah, I just want you guys to play and experiment. And again, the long game of this is that it's just what are different ways we can think about our references? What are different ways we can incorporate references? What are different ways we can think about editing, moving things around? Nothing is set in stone, you guys. You guys have complete artistic freedom and license. And then next week, we're really going to push that with color and really have a good time. Great. All right. Thank you guys very much. Any questions? I know there's a lot that I threw at you again, like I always do. Yeah. Are you guys excited? Ready to get out there and do some value studies and work on design?
Yes.
Yep.
Perfect. All right. Well, I look forward to meeting you guys more and more as these 6 weeks progress. You know, make sure you put some work on our Padlet, share some of your paintings or artists that you really like or paintings that you really like, and let me know how I can best serve you and help you in this 6 weeks. You do not have to do this exact image if you don't like to. You know, if you find it too boring or whatever, you do not need to do the same image, but do pick something on the simpler side. The next 3 weeks, we will definitely get more complicated and be dealing with shadow patterns, which can be a little tougher for a lot of people, but very, very important. Great. I will, if nobody has any questions. Carrie, you got a question? Nope, you're all good. All right, you guys, fantastic. Thank you so much. I apologize, went a half hour long, it looks like. I had a blast. I hope you guys had a blast. Sorry for talking for 2 full hours before I even got to the painting. We'll try to do more painting next week, but I say that every time.
I don't mind if you run long. It's almost wine time here on the East Coast.
Oh, lucky you. Yeah, I'm ready for wine time. All right, you guys. Fantastic. Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. And again, I look forward to meeting you, getting to see your work, and share and ask questions on the Padlet page. And everybody else, please visit the Padlet page and comment and give feedback. And I will see you guys in 7 days.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, and I will share these videos both through the email and over Zoom. Sometimes I usually try to get them out, or I usually am able to get them out today on the same day as class, but not always. It just depends on the Zoom server, the school server, my server, then getting them to YouTube, then getting them from YouTube to you guys. So it goes through 4 different steps. So if it's not today, it'll be there tomorrow. All right. Take care, everybody. Good luck.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.